Ladies and gents, PepperBelly back again, and in this video I want to discuss what happened to Interstellar Marines recently. So about a week ago on January 7th, they released a video stating the challenges of development and how, unfortunately, the winter sale was pretty bad. Like, it was actually a complete disaster because they didn't make nearly enough revenue to be able to fund development even further. So they kind of stagnated at this point where they don't have the funds to really continue developing at the rate they were before, which was already, to a degree, slow. And I believe the figure that he said was they made about 10% of what they made the prior winter sale beforehand. So you could tell that's a very big drop-off in actual funding and revenue you've acquired through a sale. So it's a really bad thing. And unfortunately, they had to release 3 developers as well. So they had to get rid of one of the coding producers and 2 of the programmers. And now they have leftovers. The people who are still working there are like interns and, you know, community managers and so on. So you could tell they took a huge hit in the development department. And I want to talk about the entire incident and what I think can be done, the problems with the development as it, you know, as far as it has come up until this point, and just kind of be a lot more critical of what has been happening, because a lot of my Interstellar Marines videos have always been promoting the game, because I really truly believe this game, if it was developed to the full vision that Kim has for it, can be easily one of the best games ever released in the history of anything. I truly believe that. But at the same time, development has been incredibly slow, and I feel that it's time for me to be a little bit more harsh on what I think should have or could have been done in hindsight, and where we should be going from here on out to try to at least get the ball rolling and try to inspire people to want to invest more money into a project like this. If I was rich, I'd do it myself. Let me just put it that way. If I was a multi-millionaire, I would give the money needed and we'd work out some kind of deal, contract, whatever, where I would be their investor. But I'm not rich, so I can't do that. So the only thing I can do is just try to relay my information, my thought process on what can be done to help assist the development of this game so that it can be made to the vision that we all want to see it made, right? Like, I want this game done. They want this game done. There are fans who want this game done. It's been development for a very long time. There are a lot of other games that have been development for just as long. I mean, Ground Branch is another example. It's been around since like 2005-ish. So it's not the only game that's been going through this kind of hellish development stage. It's taking years and years, but we need to finally crack down on how we could just get a lump sum of cash to be able to develop this title within a reasonable time frame of like 2 to 3, 4 years tops. So now I want to discuss the problems with the actual development of this game. And part of it is I feel they've lost focus on what they want to do. And they're kind of going through this process of trying to crack down on polishing certain aspects of the game, minor aspects of the game, which take up way too much time in the grand scheme of developing content for players to experience. Now, on one hand, that's an excellent thing because what you get plays very, very smoothly for the most part. It's a very polished experience given what is currently there. On the other hand, limited content, and there's not enough for players to actually do. You got co-op missions, but they feel like once you do them 3 or 4 times, it stagnates, it can get boring. Once you beat, like, you know, in the Neurogen incident, which was really awesome when it first came out, that was a really cool experience. And when you play through that a couple of times, again, stagnates, get boring. And although you can up the difficulty and challenge yourself or play co-op and do whatever, like, doing the same thing over and over again can get repetitive and boring. And although it's fun to a degree, there's not enough in the game to give it depth for those missions. Like, if we had gadgets, grenades, all kinds of stuff to utilize within those missions, replayability would be a lot higher. But all we have is 2 firearms with suppressors. And, well, we also have a pistol, so I guess we have technically 3 firearms, but the pistol model isn't even completed yet. So we're still using a you know, like a stripped down SMG variant as the placeholder pistol model. So you can tell there's a lot of things kind of preventing this game from moving forward. And the focus on PvP in Hell Week is one of the aspects I think kind of brought back what was wrong with it. Initially, I thought it was a decent idea. You know, initially I thought, okay, we'll have multiplayer to appease players, the gamers, while they develop the foundation of the game and develop the game further and continue on and to develop the co-op and single player aspects of the game. The problem is that nobody's playing the multiplayer enough, and the people that do end up leaving bad reviews or saying the game isn't polished or isn't nearly done, and it turns other potential buyers away. They don't want to purchase the game because they see these reviews, they see how limited the actual game experience is, and they don't want to, you know, put money down on a product like that, which is understandable to a degree, even though what's currently there right now is absolutely worth the price you're paying. But even then, I feel that more could be done to appease players, and I think focusing more on co-op would have been better instead of focusing more on PvP. Because I will be completely honest here, one of the things that really annoyed me about the actual development of Interstellar Marines and the community itself was the entire idea of competitive multiplayer. I've been following this game since 2005, like a long time ago when I was a wee child in high school, alright? Like, I was following this game for an extremely long time, and every single video, everything I've ever seen Kim put out talking about the idea, the philosophy behind this game, not once do I ever recall hearing competitive multiplayer inspiring clans and teams to compete in the game. Not once. It's always been about a rich narrative, single player experience, while also having co-op as well as a main focal point. Never have I heard PvP, first person shooter, competitive multiplayer like CSGO or any other competitive game. Never have I heard that. Okay, so seeing it kind of being forced down our throats now, where I'm seeing all these competitive gamers come out with clan tags in their names and whatnot, all trying to compete and play and win like icons for in. To me, that's completely irresponsible for the actual development of the game. To me, I feel like that is going in a completely different route that I did not sign up for. I signed up for a game that was going to deliver me an awesome single player experience or co-op experience. And although I love multiplayer and I love competitive gameplay as well, I played the PvP in this game excessively. That's pretty much where I put most of my hours, and I have like over 150. I still feel like that should not be the focal point, and that those clan members who are commenting on what they want to see the game become is kind of going in the opposite direction of what the game was originally setting out to do. It almost feels like these gamers are interfering with the actual development of the game. And to me, that's wrong. That's a huge problem. It feels like Kim is kind of stuck between two options where you have like, he's being sandwiched between two separate opinions where the people who are actually playing the game want this, while those who purchased it for the reasons they originally did, which is co-op and single player, aren't playing it, but want the more enforcement, more focus on single player and co-op. So it's like he's being sandwiched between those two decisions, and obviously he ends up kind of leaning towards the people who are actually more active and who are playing the game more. But at the same time, that's kind of problematic because it goes against everything the game originally set out to do, which I personally believe isn't competitive multiplayer. I was hoping for a single player or co-op tactical shooter that focused heavily on realism and sci-fi and narrative with RPG elements put into the game. So that's pretty much the reason. Those are the development issues I have with it. The problems I think that arise by following that path. It kind of screwed things up in the long run. People started seeing that it looked like they were lack of focus. It seemed like they had a lack of focus on what they wanted to crack down on and accomplish. And comparing it to other games out there are plenty of other games that were developed by similar sized development teams or even smaller sized development teams who accomplish more in a shorter time frame, and it kind of makes you think like, well, what's taking so long here? I think adding new weapons, like a perfect example would be looking at a game like Ground Branch. Ground Branch has a variety of weapons already implemented. Although they all utilize the exact same reload animation of the M4A1 carbine, you still have all these weapons. So you'll have an AK, but you'll reload it like an M4A1. But it's not a big deal because we all know it's early access. To me, it makes sense that if Interstellar Marines would have just implemented all these new weapons but keep the same reload animations, I don't see how that would be an issue. You know, you don't have to animate everything right away. Just give us content, let us see what we can get, and then you polish it up in the end. They're kind of doing the develop what they have so far, polish it, and then once it's all set, slowly progress to the next thing and develop that as well. So I don't know. I think it would have been better to do more focus on actual single player and co-op, less incentive on developing competitive multiplayer game modes and environments and whatnot, and focus more on developing actual co-op missions. Hell Week, while a nice idea and fits within the lore of the game, doesn't deliver what people really expected, and it would have been a nice idea if you could crack down everything that needed to be accomplished for Hell Week in a month or 2 tops. Once you got that out there and it was finished within 1 month or 2 months, then it would actually be like a decent thing. But spending a year, we're over a year now at this point, and you're still haven't finished Hell Week, that's where we start saying, okay, there's a problem here. Maybe if it's going to take this long to develop one simple game mode, it should probably be focused, that effort should have been focused more on single player and co-op and developing the AI and improving things in that area instead of focusing just on this. Hell Week's a nice idea, you know, it plays pretty cool. It's kind of an immersive experience, especially now once they added CTRs, once they added the actual combat training robots to the environments, the experience was that much better because now the worlds didn't feel empty and you were constantly worried about getting shot in the back. But still, it's lacking substance, and I think developing something like another version of Neurogen Incident, like another game mode or another mission, co-op mission or single player mission like the Neurogen Incident would have been a hell of a lot better than developing Hell Week. But again, this is all hindsight talk, right? I'm just trying to decipher what went wrong and in my own mind of what I've seen and kind of try to like think of ways to fix it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video, which will probably go on for like another 10 minutes, is going to be a kick in the balls to pretty much everybody, and I'm saying that straight up because it's an idea that most people will not like, but I'm going to share it anyway because I think it could be a potential way of fixing everything. But anyway, the next thing that they talked about in the video that they released was finding a publisher or an investor. Now, this is something I feel they should have been doing the whole time anyway, right? I think they should have been looking for a publisher and investor, not relying too much on the actual funding from Steam Early Access. They should have been looking for a publisher and investor the entire time. Whether or not they were or not, I have no idea. But it almost seems like right now they're panicking because they had to fire 3 employees, that now their team is smaller, now they need funding. And in fact, Kim even said himself that he couldn't even afford to have himself working there, so his mother actually lent him money to get him through the next 6 months so he can live to continue working on the game. So it's very nice of her to be able to do that to help, you know, her son out with his dream game, his dream product here. But at the same time, I feel finding a publisher or investor should have been #1 priority outside of development. So you continue developing the game like you're doing now, but try to find a publisher and investor so you can get those funds you need to be able to actually develop this game, because this is a very ambitious project. And looking at the scope that this game wants to achieve, it needs a large amount of funding. Let's just be frank, all right? Like, it needs a lot of money to be able to develop what needs to be done in a timely fashion. This game is incredibly ambitious. You look at other games that want to do super ambitious things like Star Citizen, and they're making like $900 million from crowdfunding, but they're actually getting the money. And even then, it's taking them a long time to develop things, and the game is buggy as hell, and it's got all these problems, but at least it has the funding, and you can see the team behind it is exponentially better. Like, they have way more employees working on that game compared to 0 Point Software. So money is an absolutely critical asset in developing this game. So they're currently looking for a publisher and investor. That's happening right now. I sincerely hope they can find one, because someone needs to be able to see what this game's potential is and be able to actually back them and help them actually be able to realize that vision. So while that's happening, while Kim is going to be looking for financial backing through investors or a publisher, they're going to continue developing the player progression system, Hell Week, and developing skins. Now, the skins is something that I'm not too fond of. I mean, it's an idea that's obviously going to help people get involved, because they actually opened up a package like the player creation tool package or something like that, and you can download Unity and you can basically create skins for the character models and the weapons in the game, and they will eventually implement them into the actual game itself so players can use it. Like, Spearhead members will have their own custom skins that no one else has, and then you'll unlock it with combat points as you progress your character. So it'll actually give you character progression and unlocks. Now, I wouldn't be a huge fan of this idea, but when I think about Star Wars Battlefront, I played that game a ton, even though it was a very lacking game. It wasn't the best Star Wars Battlefront game ever. It's probably the worst, actually, in the whole series, even though it's a reboot. But the game was lacking a lot, but I played it a crap load just to unlock the Scout armor. Once I unlocked the Scout armor, I stopped playing the game, because that was the only incentive for me to play it. It was fun, it had its moments, that was another reason, but once I got the Scout armor, I didn't feel like playing the game anymore. I felt like there was no real reason to play it, nothing to really work for, and that's kind of a problem, because You shouldn't want to have to play a game because you want to work for something. You should be playing a game because the damn game is good, right? It has replayability by the game itself. So skins aren't a terrible idea. The problem I have with skins is the fact that I'm looking at what people are already coming up with, and a lot of it is reminding me of CSGO. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, where you have all these ridiculously stupid looking skins that are completely like not realistic or authentic in the slightest. You know, like pink camos, like flowers and shit, like what Rainbow Six Siege did, right? You have all these retardedly I mean, I'm not insulting the talent of the people who design these skins, because they would look good in a game like CSGO, but a game like Interstellar Marines, it doesn't fucking fit within the lore, having some like giant gold gun running around in the rain. It actually angers me to see something like that. It completely breaks. It goes on the tangent of competitive multiplayer. It follows the same road as that, where basically it's detracting from what the game is actually setting out to do, which is to be a realistic, authentic experience of interstellar travel, like an Interstellar Marine Special Forces unit making first contact. They're not going to be doing that with pink painted fucking covered guns and all these retarded, you know what I mean? Like, it infuriates me to see that kind of shit. And I'm not insulting the talent of those who put the work in. I just don't think it fits within the game like Interstellar Marines, and some of the ideas people have for this game completely go against what the actual game was originally setting out to do, and is why I got behind it all those years back, giving money to the actual developers themselves. So that is pretty much what is happening right now. You know, they should find a publisher, hopefully they can. And the remaining part of this video, I'm going to be talking about what I think can be done, because obviously they're thinking about Kickstarters, or they're trying to find other methods so they can find a publisher. They might launch another Kickstarter. Now, the idea of launching another Kickstarter is pretty much the primary reason why I came up with this idea in the first place. Because relaunching a Kickstarter on a game that you're already developing is either going to cause a major disaster in community PR, or it's going to be just something that people aren't going to fund. And winning that battle is incredibly hard. So this is where I come up with this idea, where it's not going to be popular, it's going to be a kick in the groin, and I know people are not going to like to hear this, but I think this is a possible solution that could actually work if it's done carefully and with 100% determination. And that is starting from scratch. Now, I know that sounds terrible. People are not going to want to hear this, like I said. But anyway, going into it, starting from scratch all over again with an entirely new engine. It's been debated in the past whether or not they should switch to Unreal Engine 4, because now Unreal 4 is free. And they've said multiple times that they wouldn't do it because they'd have to restart all over again, and they don't want to do that because it would take even longer and it would be more tedious and etc. and whatever. And that they already developed so much with Unity 5. I feel right now, this is the time, if you want to switch engines, this is the time to do it. Because switching to Unreal Engine 4 can actually net you a ton of benefits that you would not have otherwise. Because from what I've seen, there are other developers who have done the same. Alright, if you guys are familiar with a game called Slasher, which has been renamed to Mordhau, which is, they renamed it when they swapped engines. These guys were creating... They were initially competitive players within Chivalry Medieval Warfare, which is a game I used to cover back in the past. It's a game I also backed on Kickstarter with a lot of money. My name's in the credits, all that kind of shit. You know, I got t-shirts and whatever. And they didn't like the direction Chivalry went in like I did. I hated the direction Chivalry went in. I no longer support that game. I dislike it. So they decided, hey, I'm going to go make my own game. And that's what they started doing. They started developing it with Unity 4, and then they upgraded to Unity 5. And they were developing it with that engine. And they decided to swap to Unreal Engine 4 because they figured it would help speed up the progress of development and make things better. And lo and behold, it did. They swapped engines, they imported all the assets they could import from Unity 5, and it already looked infinitely better. The graphics, everything, the environments, the render detail, the shaders, everything just immediately looked infinitely better. You can actually go on their website and look at the difference between Unity 5 and Unreal 4. These are two guys, alright? These are two developers who just did that. You know, they just imported all their Unity 5 assets into Unreal Engine 4 and are able to develop even exponentially quicker now than they were before because of the efficiency of Unreal 4. And they're not the only developers to do that. There's a couple of others I can't really remember right now, unfortunately. I wish I can give those examples, but there's other people who have done that, where they switched to Unreal 4 and they notice that their development speed has increased a lot. They're developing a lot quicker because Unreal 4 is just a lot more efficient at development pace. Like their pace of development has increased. They are able to be more efficient in what they try to set out to do, and they develop a game a lot quicker as a result. So the way he puts it is this. I remember he said that the developer between Mordhau, he said that once they switched to Unreal Engine 4, they were able to progress faster at a faster rate and accomplish more in a shorter time frame. In 1 month, they accomplished all of what they needed to do in a year of working with Unity 5. Think about that. In 1 month, 2 developers working in 1 month accomplished what they set out to do in 1 year with Unity 5. They already surpassed how far they were with Unity 5 in 1 month. 1 month. Think about that. So if Interstellar Marines, a 0 Point Software, swapped engines to Unreal 4, alright, you even look at games like Rust. There are other games out there that swap engines and upgrade, like, you know, DayZ even did it. Let's not really talk about that game though, but there's a lot of other games that swap engines and re-release it as a new product, and they give it to everyone who's already purchased the original product gets the free upgrade. You know, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter also did this. They had the Unreal Engine 3 version, and then they came out with Unreal Engine 4, and everybody got a free upgrade, right? Like, so they can do something like that. It would make a lot more sense to actually develop on Unreal 4, progressing further, importing the assets you can import from Unity 5 into Unreal 4, and then just continue to crack down on development to try to see if you can speed up the pace at the same time while you're doing that, looking for publishers and investors while launching a Kickstarter. So you're basically doing everything all in one cumulative effort. And I think it could work, because I think if you're going to relaunch a Kickstarter, it's better to start off with a brand new product. People will want to look at something and see something compelling, right? If you spent the next 2 months, let's say you stop development with the Unity 5 right now and you import all the assets into Unreal 4 tomorrow, and you spend all of January, February developing a preview, a tech demo, a tech preview of the game on Unreal Engine 4. Then you relaunch a Kickstarter, and you show the new engine, and you mention the mistakes, and you mention everything that went wrong with development, you mention everything, you be as open and honest as you can, which you've already been doing up to this point. Just be super honest, super unbiased, and explain why you think you deserve a second chance, because it's really hard to win those consumers back, alright? Like, let's look at Sorellin, the guys behind Takedown Red Saber. They released an absolute disaster of a game. Their game was terrible on release. It was a complete disaster. We all know this. It was a game I was heavily looking forward to, and I was incredibly disappointed. And now they have to win the trust back by developing a brand new product. And they're developing Epsilon right now, which I can tell you is already better than what Takedown was when it was finished. I reviewed Epsilon. You can look at it on my channel. You can see what I was talking about. But basically, they developed that preview. They developed a game with a new engine. I think they're developing on Unreal Engine 4 as well. And they tried something new, and they made a tech preview. It's one mission, but they developed everything around that one mission to show you this is what the game is going to look like when it's actually done. And they released it to people, and people are playing it, and they're like, holy crap, this is way better than Takedown. This is actually like, this is looking promising. Like, I think it has an insane potential personally, myself. So, I mean, looking at it, I think that, you know, they've already won my hearts, you know, the hearts and minds, they've already won me back. Takedown was a disaster. I believe they deserve a second chance. They won me on that second chance. Whether or not they can deliver this time is where it really counts. If they fail, they've lost my trust altogether. But at least they have a second chance, and so far it's looking promising. So if 0 Point Software can deliver the same thing with Interstellar Marines, rebranding it essentially with Unreal 4, starting from scratch, developing a tech preview, showing off what needs to be shown off, what you want to achieve, including all kinds of gadgets, animations, whatnot, and releasing it on Steam or just releasing it to people on Kickstarter, displaying what you accomplished in that time frame. That's a critical thing to do, is to show off what, it's like showing your resume to people. You want to show what you accomplished from this point in time to this point in time before you launch your Kickstarter using Unreal Engine 4. If it looks like solid progress, people will get behind your game. They will sit there and they'll see that, oh, this many people developed this kind of product on Unreal 4. Hell yeah, we'll back them. I'll give them money, because it's, so far this is looking way better than the previous version, Unity 5. They mentioned their mistakes, they showed how development went, and now they're trying again, but they have to relaunch a new Kickstarter for more additional funding, and you repackage everything. You repackage it all into this new build, and people see it. People can see what you accomplished, and they'll realize that, yes, there actually is potential here if you launch with a new engine. that engine will speed up development, because every single developer I've looked at who swapped to Unreal 4, their development has skyrocketed in pace. And that's critical for Interstellar Marines, because Interstellar Marines has been taking forever to develop, and if you swap engines and it increases the speed at which you can get things done, that is better for everybody. And I have a feeling that if you were to swap to Unreal Engine 4 and start from scratch, you would surpass what you've accomplished right now in a year's time, building on Unity 5. So everything you accomplished on Unity 5 up until this point, if you actually developed on Unreal 4, you would surpass it within a year. I feel like you can honestly do that, considering that the guys behind Mordhau developed in 1 month what it took them in a year to develop Slasher. So, and those are 2 people, you know, they might have some extra, like, contributors on the side, but, like, the 2 main developers who are behind that. Same with Ground Branch. Look at Ground Branch. It's a prime example. You know, there's 2 people, there's 2 main developers there, and they have outside sources contributing. Another aspect of this, I think, would be to make your studio more virtualized, international, hire outside sources, because I look at a game like Squad. Squad is an immense success. That game is incredibly successful for what they've accomplished so far. They already have a project, like a following because of Project Reality, but they're incredibly successful, but they're also an international group. They have people all over the world who are helping to develop this game. They don't have a centralized studio. They don't have a physical studio. The guys behind Chivalry, Torn Banner Studios, was also the same way. They started out as a virtual studio. They developed the game. It did incredibly well on Steam. And because of that, they were actually able to form a physical studio. I think it was in Toronto, Canada, somewhere in, I think. I could be wrong about that. But they were able to, everybody from all over the world moved to meet at this one city so they can work together on more games. So they started out virtual and they got together. Just because you have a physical studio doesn't mean you cannot outsource things. I think you honestly should. You know, the guys behind Ground Branch are doing the same thing. Almost every game you look at that's early access, they don't have a physical studio. Most of the time, they're outsourced. You know, they have people all over the place, all over the world who contribute. And I think Zero Point Software can benefit from something like that. You know, like hire animators from like wherever the hell they're willing to work from virtually. You know, like they can build on the game from wherever they are in the world. They can send it up to you and they update the build and whatever. You know, like they can do something like that. Outsourcing it to people can help alleviate the workload on you guys. Obviously, hiring them in financial aspects is kind of a thing. You know, you got to worry about being able to afford to be able to pay these people. But find contributors. Just find those who are willing to work from outside of the actual office building. I know you want to be able to keep things centralized within your actual company, within your physical entity, like in, you know, your office, but like at the same time, it could be beneficial to just expand the horizons, get more people working on it on a payroll that are outside of your office, like somewhere else in the world, and have them help you out. Because I think that's another critical aspect. So like, I don't know, because I really want this game to be made, guys. Like, I want this game to be finished. And I'm sick and tired of waiting, because the reality is, games today do not exist like this. You know, it's like Kim said in the video, a game like this has not been made. There is no games like this, guys. Like, Ground Branch, Squad, and Interstellar Marines are pretty much the latest versions. Due Process is another one. Like, they're the only games that are delivering the experiences I want. Like the video I released yesterday where I was talking about, you know, what happened to shooters. Well, these are the kind of games, these are the indie developers we're relying on. I was talking about in that video, I was saying that how, you know, we rely on indie developers to give us the experiences we want. That's essentially what we're doing right now. I'm waiting on this game to be finished so that I can get the experience I want. But unfortunately, they don't have the financial backing to be able to accomplish such extravagant feats. So, I don't know. Like, I think this is a possibility, like a possible solution to help develop the game and just get it finished. You repackage a new build using Unreal 4, showing off everything you can accomplish within 2 to 3 months time, and then you show it to publishers and you show it to investors and you create a Kickstarter around it, and who knows? Things can probably turn around in a significant way that can actually completely change the tide of your development pace. And because you're on Unreal 4, you may be able to develop things even faster, more efficiently, and better. So, I don't know, unpopular opinion. Most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to hear about starting all over again, scratching and scrapping what you've done and start. Like, I know what it feels like to, you know, spend a long time working on something and then scrapping it all together. I know what that feels like, all right? it sucks. It's a huge hit to all the effort you put in, but at the same time, it's a learning experience. You learn what you did, you take what you learned, and you try to expand and better it the next time around. And by developing this game, starting from scratch with Unreal 4, who knows? You may be able to accomplish a lot more than you originally set out to do. Now, if you find a publisher and an investor before that, then okay, maybe you don't need to switch engines. But unless you can, if you can't find a publisher or a backer, investor, or whatever, and you want to relaunch a Kickstarter, I think starting from scratch is the best idea to do, because then people won't be as mad. Those who've already backed you won't be like, oh, I've given up on these guys already. They're dead to me. They're useless. They don't know what they're doing. They're, unguided. They don't have focus, whatever the case may be. They're uninspired. They're not motivated. Whatever excuse people might come up with. If you start from scratch with a brand new build that looks compelling enough to people, they will see that you put a tremendous amount of effort into this product, and they will probably back you. They will be more inclined to want to support someone who is giving it their all, even if it means you have to start all over again. And a lot of people have done that and have met success. So I don't know. That's just my personal opinion on it. Whether or not it's, people agree is an entirely other thing. This video is like 31 minutes long now, so I'll end it here because I've pretty much got all the things I wanted to say off my chest. If you guys agree or don't agree, let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you guys think of this, because it's an unfortunate situation they're in right now. They're in a very unfortunate situation, and they need to get it resolved quickly. Otherwise, things can come crumbling down. Everything they accomplished so far can just start crumbling down, and I don't want to see that happen. I want to see this game finished. I want to see it developed in all its glory of what I know it can be. So my name's been PepperBelly. Thank you guys for joining me today on this extensively long opinion piece, and I will see you guys on the next one.